A pleasant day to you, Moonhaven Falls. Audrick Cashmere here, broadcasting live from the stable-ish studio floor. As I look out the western window, however, clear seems a very relative term today. First, the good news. Elara Meadowlight reports that our recent bout of ambient magic static is officially on the decline. Ley lines appear to be settling, which of course means that if your frying pans have stayed firmly in their cupboards and your garments have remained the color you bought them, they likely will not change now. And as I say this, I feel as though I can hear a collective sigh of relief echoing across the valley. However, as the old saying goes, when a door closes, a window opens. And yes, I am aware that that is supposed to be an upbeat saying about how when something bad happens, there is usually a new opportunity associated with it. Here in Moonhaven, however, it has another meaning altogether. Yes, listeners, it is that time of year again. Living just northwest of the Shadowfen means dealing with the ecosystem's less dangerous, but infinitely more infuriating residents and events. We have officially entered the Shadowfen runoff period. So, if you were woken at 3 a.m. by what sounded like an aggressive neon blue harmonica buzzing directly outside your window, you are likely already aware. But those are will-o'-the-wisps wandering up from the southeast ruins. The town guard assures us that these are merely minor stray lights. They aren't the soul-stealing variety, thankfully, just a bit distracting. They are, however, quite a bit brighter than normal, and have been seen hurling tiny bolts of static electricity at nearby bugs this year, so hopefully they will help dissipate the remaining charge in the air faster. Captain Bancroft, however, has requested that everyone please stop trying to give them orders, as they generally take this as a challenge, and then you are the target of choice until they get bored and wander off. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, if you looked outside, you've likely noticed that the Smudge has officially arrived. While the fen-saturated fog doesn't harbor any lurking horrors, this damp, heavy mist does leave that unmistakable, sticky, sulfur-scented film on every pane of glass in town. I'm sure you'll all join me in a moment of silence for Sheldon and his new landscaping and maintenance business. I'm told that his crew is already booked solid through Friday just in window washing duty alone. So, if you see Sheldon or any of his crew out there wiping off the Smudge, be kind, because you definitely do not want to end up blacklisted and forced to do it yourself. That's the morning news here on the Crystal Network. Up next, we've received an interesting letter from what was definitely a single large man in a trench coat, and definitely not 5 gnomes. I can tell, because it was hand-delivered to me this morning as I came up to the station, and, he was very careful to emphasize that point. Now, as many of you are aware, one of our regular broadcasters, Ignis, is still out of the valley enjoying a restorative holiday and broadcasting remotely to avoid unnecessary interruptions. It seems, however, word travels fast, even across distant ley lines. News of last Tuesday's unauthorized interruption has apparently reached his ears, and received a very brief and incredibly hot magical missive from him yesterday evening, mostly consisting of phrases similar to roasted pests and crushed ceramic base for my new garden. We have, however, been asked out of the interest of politeness to play this recording for you all. So, without further delay... Greetings, valued citizens of the valley, and greetings to the grand scaly master of the peaks, should he be listening from his entirely well-deserved vacation.
We're sending this crystal today purely out of a sense of neighbourly etiquette. It is the polite thing to do, we decided.
And it is definitely not because we heard the dragon is hunting us after our tiny broadcast overlap last week.
And definitely not because of the so-called Lady F and her guard. No, not at all. We don't even know what a Lady F is. We think it sounds like a made-up letter. And furthermore, the Great Wizarding Gnome wants everyone to know that he was absolutely 100% not affected at all by magical static. And that even if he had been affected, which he was not, let the record show, it would only have made him stronger, more glorious, probably quite a bit taller, even.
But even though the master has absolutely no fear of the dragon, none at all, he didn't even think about him, he just wants the public to know that it definitely was not him who caused the static.
That is because we, unlike some folk, respect the zoning laws. So, to recap, we're fine. The gnome is fine. The static wasn't us. We're definitely not scared. And, we hope Ignis enjoys the local weather wherever he is. Hey, tell him about the scones. There's no time for that now.
No more comments! Compliments to the dragon! On to glory!
Well, thank you to Mr. Fivegate for clearing that up for us. I'm sure Ignis will find that explanation entirely comforting when he returns. You're listening to the Crystal Network.
Greetings, Seekers of Destiny. I am Elara Meadowlight, and welcome once more to the quiet sanctuary of the arcane whispers. 14 days have been joined to the rota of fortune since the hands of time stuttered and the very sky threatened to fray. 48 weeks now stand between us and the Phoenix's initial fiery ascension. And today, the air is finally still. My cold iron shackles have been returned to their vault, the teapots have ceased their spontaneous songs, and our houses have settled back into their now stable hues. The great tempest of static has passed, and yet we find ourselves sweeping the debris from our doorsteps, and the web of necessity offers us no time for complacency. Early this morning, a scout, returning from the edge of the plateau, noticed a marvel near the rushing waters of the Tears. A massive iron anchor, a relic from some long-forgotten skyship of old, had been unearthed by the shifting currents of the river. It did not sit loose upon the stone, however. It would seem that over the last few days of cosmic upheaval, it has been revealed that the ancient, deep roots of a nearby mountain willow had coiled tightly around the iron, weaving through the fluke and the ring, fusing metal and wood into a single, immobile monolith. This is the omen of the rooted anchor, and it is a herald of shoring and subtlety. It tells us that while the immediate storm has vanished, the foundations of our world have been subtly altered. It is a divine instruction to look closely at the cracks that this static has revealed in your own life, in your home, and in your very spirit, and to reinforce them now, for beneath the current peace, a slow, deep current is beginning to turn to the south. A special note on the rooted anchor. The vision of the rooted anchor is an omen of internal fortification, of slow, tectonic-seeming transition. The architectural blunder of the cosmos has now been corrected, but structural weaknesses still remain. If the recent chaos has revealed a flaw in your patience, your preparations, even your relationships, do not simply celebrate that the trial is over. Fix the fault. We are now entering a period of quiet middle future shifting. The changes ahead will not strike like lightning. They will creep like a rising tide. So, bind your roots to that which is solid now, so you are not displaced by the slow drift to come. For those of you born under the sign of the Whispering Willow, that is, mid-spring to early summer, the rooted anchor sings directly to your spirit today. The recent static tried to force your growth too quickly, but you held fast. Now is the time to take the lessons of that frantic energy and lock them deep into your trunk. Look to your closest bonds. Reinforce the friendships and alliances that kept you grounded when the world turned inside out. The murmuring of the Moonhaven Falls has returned to its ancient, steady song, advising you to deepen your embrace of the earth. For those of you born under the sign of the soaring griffin, that is, late summer to early autumn, for the griffin, the anchor is a reminder that even the highest flyer must eventually rely on the strength of the roost. The time-skipping chaos disrupted your trajectory, challenged your control. Use this period of stillness to repair your gear, to realign your maps, to reinforce those structural defenses in your home and your mind. Do not look to the horizon for the next grand campaign just yet. Instead, it is now time to focus on your foundation. The distant roar of the falls echoes with a deep and structural resonance today. commanding you to build, brick by brick, your own foundation, and reminding you that precision in the small things ensures victory in the large. For those of you born under the sign of the deepening mire, that is, mid-autumn to early winter, the rooted anchor sends a tremor through your deep waters, pointing its heavy iron crown toward the lowland. While the town celebrates the quiet return of normalcy, your instincts may feel a slow, heavy tug toward the southeast, toward the quiet. Something is settling into a new shape, something nearby, something personal. Do not rush to investigate, but do not ignore this inkling either. Now is the time to shore up your personal boundaries and ensure that your inner sanctuary is secured against the slow crawl. The trickle of the falls today sounds heavy and thick with silt, whispering to you that the low places always catch that which the high places drop. For those of you born under the sign of the frozen hearth, that is, late winter to early spring, your inner fire has survived the cheap, volatile fuel of the static, but the sheer exhaustion of containment has likely left your hearth ash-heavy. The rooted anchor calls on you to rebuild your reserves. Do not rush to burn brightly again too quickly. Instead, now is the time to reinforce the boundaries of your hearthstone. Please, re-establish your daily rituals. Tend to your hearth and home. Ensure that your energy is spent only on that which provides long-term stability. The steady flow of the falls surges with a calm but unyielding density to you today. It speaks of a power that does not need to flash to be felt. Please remember that these are but whispers from the cosmic currents, glimpses of the long road ahead. The static is cleared, the sky is blue, the anchor has been dropped deep into the bedrock of your life. Now is the time to tend to your foundations, to mend your fences, and to cherish this hard-won peace while the road turns onward. Remember always, though, that it is the choices you make, the actions you take, that are the true shapers of your destiny. And may the light of the moon guide your path, and may your roots hold fast against the changing tide. I am Elara Meadowlight, and this has been your Omen Outcast.
Good afternoon, Moonhaven Falls. My vacation was adequate. The mana streams in the southern reaches were beautifully stable, entirely quiet, and blissfully free of local interference. Upon my return to the plateau yesterday, I was handed a rather amusing little artifact by our station associate Timmy. It appeared to be a pre-recorded crystal left on the porch, packed with a series of rather loud, incredibly repetitive protestations of innocence regarding the hijacking of my broadcast a week ago. The anonymous sender went to great lengths to assure me it was all a polite misunderstanding. They insisted repeatedly that they do not fear me, that they respect all local zoning laws and practices, and that they had nothing to do with the recent static. As though something like that could. Well, I have always prided myself on being a civilized being. Therefore, I shall of course consider this apparent apology in the exact manner in which it was offered. I shall of course treat it with the absolute seriousness, dignity, and profound respect that a bundle of nervous garden equipment hiding inside a tailored canvas sheet truly deserves, and I shall act accordingly. Of course. The answers from 2 weeks ago are as follows: a rainbow, smoke, the sun, frost, thunder, steam, and lightning. Now, because some annoying, careless, and rude little pests accidentally stole my airtime last week, the riddles I meticulously prepared for you were never properly transmitted, and I, of course, refused to let a good intellectual labor go to waste, merely because the frequency was cluttered by a chorus of whispering knees. So, please, listen carefully. Here is the set we should have run. Let us see who among you has the clarity of mind to solve them. Number 1. I am a soft, pure cloud, harvested from the field, spun into gold by a wooden wheel. I am pulled, I am twisted, and fed to the hungry mouth, until I am reborn as the very coat on your back. What am I? The first of 7 rightful hurdles, properly aired at last. Do please take your parchments to Timmy at the desk. I shall be in my study, composing a neighborly response to our friend in the jacket. Until next week, Moonhaven, do take care.
Good afternoon, Moonhaven Falls. I am Celine Meadowlight, and this is the Magic Minute. I am pleased to report that I am back to my proper temporal self today. The lingering etheric static has not completely faded from the valley, and there is a distinct feeling of nervous anticipation in the air. Our local spellcasters are slowly, very carefully, removing their self-imposed restrictions, though no one is putting their protective wards completely away just yet. Before we begin, I would like to formally thank everyone in town for how incredibly patient and wonderful you were last week, while the temporal feedback had me feeling, well, a bit too much like myself. And of course my sincerest apologies to you, Audrick, for missing what should have been a fascinating debate on the nature of chronomancy and casualty.
Well, think nothing of it, Celine. Frankly, it was worth it just to get those fresh chocolate chip cookies, but I am quite glad to have the voice of chaos back in her proper chair.
I believe I am the voice of reason, but it is good to be back, especially since the Arcane Academy has returned to relative order. The senior faculty have resumed their positions, and I was deeply amused to hear that several freshmen actually wept tears of pure joy when informed they could finally return to their standard classes. It turns out managing the administrative minutiae of a magical institution is far more grueling than learning basic spellcraft. Our artifact for the day is a highly specific culinary weapon of legend, the Butter Knife of Baldroon. In appearance, it is a completely blunt, ordinary silver spreader. If you were to strike a goblin or an orc with it, it would deal an abysmal 0 points of physical damage. However, the legendary Epicurean who forged it gave it a singular, devastating enchantment. Any creature with the word jelly, pudding, or a semi-liquid condiment name like mustard in its biological name must succeed at a DC 18 Constitution saving throw upon impact or be instantly, completely destroyed.
So, it's the ultimate weapon against breakfast? I mean, the gastronome who originally owned it was apparently quite proud of the number of exotic condiments he created by tracking down wild aggressive oozes and violently spreading them across a piece of toast. I do hope, however, he thoroughly refined the base elements before taking a bite. No one wants a sandwich that fights back on the way down.
That is true, or at least very few people. Now it's time to turn our eyes to the inflexible threads. Today we look at the profound physiological contradiction in the cosmic ledger, the law of selective mundane senses.
This one I find almost amusing, but mostly just sad, Celine. So, our universe is full of sapient humanoid heritages that inherit the traits of their animal counterparts, for example, the tabaxi, the catfolk of the distant realms. Because they're feline in nature, the cosmic architects have rightfully granted them dark vision. This allows them to see in pitch-black tunnels perfectly fine.
Yes, a logical evolutionary trait for a predatory lineage.
Exactly. It makes perfect sense. Except, of course, for the fact that the actual mundane, ordinary domestic house cat in our universe does not have that ability.
Wait. Really?
Really? According to the Grand Celestial Beastery, a standard house cat has a bit of a bonus to stealth and perception, but are completely blind in total darkness. The catfolk can see in the dark because they are like cats, but the actual cats are bumping into the furniture. How does the cosmic architect look at a tiny night-hunting predator with pupils specifically designed to absorb low light and say, no, you don't get the midnight sight, but the 6-foot bipedal jaguar over there? He has the full range.
That is a rather frustrating oversight, now that I think about it. You would think if an archetype possesses the trait, the progenitor species absolutely should as well. Owls have it. Badgers have it. Why wouldn't the feline have it?
Exactly right. Makes absolutely no sense. If a wizard can summon a tiny cat spirit as a familiar, you would assume the spirit should be able to scout a dark dungeon floor for them. Instead, however, the wizard has to summon an owl just to see in a basement, while the poor cat is left clawing at thin air. It's a systemic insult to felines everywhere, frankly, and I think the universe owes every house cat in Moonhaven a formal apology.
I'm afraid just this once I'm going to have to agree with you, Audrick. The metaphysical symmetry is entirely broken there. We can only assume that the cosmic clerk who wrote that chapter was distinctly a dog person. Well, unfortunately, that's it for today, everyone. Please watch your step in the dark, give your household pets some extra grace this week, and ensure that your breakfast preserves aren't looking back at you. This has been the Magic Minute.
Welcome to you, orderly Grand Archons and Supreme Justicars. A precise and highly regulated bow to the stenographers and educators. A perfectly measured tip of the hat to the bookkeepers, the surveyors, and the citizens of all walks of life, here in the Lost Realms. Welcome back to Crossroads Chronicles. I am your host, Audrick Cashmere, and let me say it is a profound relief to speak to you today with my own voice, at my own proper age, from my own body. The magical static of the valley is finally on the decrease, the temporal anomalies are snapping back into alignment, and I am no longer wearing garments several sizes too large for me. This evening we are exploring a paradox of the high peaks. When one thinks of the Star Elves, the most hyper-rational, rule-abiding, deeply sophisticated subtype of all elven kind, one thinks of glass towers, immaculate, decade-long tea ceremonies, and millennia spent debating the legal syntax of property deeds. One does not think of a screaming, blood-mad warrior tearing through the battlefield at several hundred years old. Yet, sitting across the table from me, dressed in a spotless, tailored silk robe, and carrying a weapon that could cleave a draft horse in two, is a Star Elf who has embraced the path of the Berserker. Please welcome Master Malvarius Sungazer.
Good evening, Master Cashmere. It is a pleasure to hear that you have been restored to your proper chronological age. Oh, please do not look so alarmed by my weapon here, I assure you. I am being entirely civil today, and I have very carefully sanitized the axe before placing it upon your table.
I appreciate the hygienics, Master Malfarius. Now, to be entirely frank, the town has been a bit baffled by your presence. You're one of the incoming adventurers who are currently looking around, and it's well known that your people pride themselves on logic, on your flawless etiquette, your strict adherence to the grand architectural rules of the cosmos. So how is it that a Star Elf justifies, well, to put it bluntly, throwing a mindless, frothing temper tantrum in the middle of combat?
A common misperception of the younger races, Audrick. You young people often conflate emotional outbursts with intellectual failure, but I assure you, my entry into a state of total unbridled fury is an entirely logical and rational choice. It is, in fact, quite data-driven.
I'm sorry, rational? Data-driven? I hear rumor that you literally bit a goblin's shield last week during a skirmish.
Oh, well, yes, but that's because it was the most efficient solution to the structural impasse. You see, after centuries of studying physics and tactical geometry and societal conflict, I have reduced all problem-solving down to its basic mathematical axiom.
Okay. And exactly what axiom is that?
If excessive violence does not solve your problems, you obviously are not using enough of it.
Wait, what? Is that the whole theorem?
It is, as far as I can tell, the absolute truth. If an obstacle remains standing, the application of force is simply mathematically insufficient. Therefore, the only logical response is to maximize torque, eliminate cognitive defensive inhibitions, and increase kinetic output until the obstacle ceases to exist in a functional state. My rage, as you call it, is simply a highly optimized mental overclocking sequence to achieve maximal force. It's basic arithmetic, really, Audrick.
What about diplomacy? What about negotiation? What about the law?
Oh, Audrick, laws are merely rules to govern the space between applications of force. If a diplomatic negotiation fails, it is because one party has not yet realized that the alternative is an infinite cascade of escalating unmitigated violence. Once you apply the correct volume of force, the problem resolves. Every time. Truly, it is a flawless system.
I suppose I don't exactly have a counter-argument that is unlikely to result in you demonstrating the math on my broadcasting equipment.
A very wise, highly rational conclusion, Master Cashmere, and I do appreciate your towering intellect.
Yes, excellent. Well, I guess that's all the time we have for this incredibly efficient episode of Crossroads Chronicles. Thank you, Master Malfarious. May your math always add up.
And may your own equations remain balanced. A good evening to you, Audrick.
That was Master Malfarious Sungazer. You're listening to Crossroads Chronicles here on the Crystal Network. Thank you for tuning in, gentle beings, but that brings us to the close of another broadcast. Before you go, I would love to hear from you, so if you'd like to engage with a specific character, or even just the channel in general, please jump down to the comments, say hello, let me know what your favorite segment was today. As always, new episodes will drop every Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. Eastern, and I truly hope that you found today's show interesting, creative, and amusing. If you did, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a rating, maybe share this episode with a friend or your favorite community. It makes a massive difference to me personally. It's a simple, free action that lets the almighty algorithm know you're listening and would like these stories to keep coming. Please keep in mind that I personally create, record, and edit all the content for the show, with the occasional guest appearance from my wife and children. If you'd ever like to support our work by buying us a monthly cup of coffee or hot chocolate as a little bit of encouragement to keep creating, we would be incredibly grateful. To all of our supporters, my family and I genuinely appreciate all of you tuning in week after week, and we would like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for continuing to do so. I look forward to catching up with y'all in the comments, and I hope you'll join us again next week. Until then, take care.